Hi guys, in this episode of Shri series, we'll talk about algebra, multiplying and dividing algebraic fractions. So we've got two questions here. 2 over a times a plus 2 over 4 or divided by 4. And then we got question 2, 2x minus 4 over 3 divided by x minus 2 over 6. All right, so just remember the first thing you need to understand when you're multiplying and dividing algebraic fractions, treat it similar to multiplying and dividing fractions involving numbers. Just like the basic fractions that you did before, when you multiply them and divide them, you apply the same rule. The only difference is in these two questions, you've got algebraic expressions. All right, so if you look at this question here, 2 over a times a plus 2 divided by 4, you've got two methods in working it out. The first method is you could literally multiply the respective denominators and the respective numerators. So in other words, you multiply the top numbers, which are your numerators, and the numbers below are your denominators, and you further simplify them. All right, so let's look at the first step, right? So you go 2 times a plus 2, so that technically is the same as this, and a times 4 becomes 4a or a4, so I like to put the numbers, so that becomes that. And then if you remember from the previous video, we did some expansion, and what happens in expansion is we getting rid of the bracket. So what I would do is I would draw the arrows to illustrate what I'm doing. So you're going to get 2 times a plus 2 times 2. All right, so 2 times a becomes 2a plus 4 divided by 4a. All right, now I just wanted to illustrate with this step that the opposite of expansion is factorization. All right, so technically what you can do is you can continue from here. So what you do is you continue from there, which is 2 over 4a and a plus 2. If you remember from the previous video, what we did was we simplified fractions. So technically, you can simplify that, and that will become 2. So your answer becomes a plus 2 divided by 2a. And that becomes your final answer. You can't simplify that further. All right. The second method, and I'll write that down here, that you can do is I'll rewrite that question. 2 over a times a plus 2 divided by 4. You can realize and you will notice that you can simplify 2 and 4. All right, you can see 2 divided by 2 is 1 and 4 divided by 2 is 2 there. And therefore, you get a plus 2 divided by 2a. So you can see both methods give you the same answer. And that's one of the good advantages of answering maths questions. You got more than one method. At the end of the day, as long as they are mathematically sound, they will give you the same answer. All right. With this one, what we did was we multiplied the respective numerators and divided it by the denominator, and you got this answer. All right, whereas in this one here we literally divided 2 and 4 and then you simplified it here. You got to remember that you can do this simplification when you got a times and a division. You can't do it when you've got addition and subtraction. So when we do adding and subtracting algebraic fractions, this will make more sense. All right, now let's look at question number 2. You got 2x minus 4 divided by 3 divided by x over 2 over 6. All right, so just like basic numerical division, the first thing you need to do is you need to convert that division to a multiplication. So therefore, you're going to go 2x over 4 divided by 3, and then you convert the division to a multiplication. And then what you do, you swap the numerator and the denominator. All right, so if you look at your basic understanding of numerical fractions, to be more specific in division, the first thing you need to do is change the division sign to a multiplication sign, and the expression to your right, swap the numerator with the denominator, and therefore that now becomes 6 over x minus 2. All right, so that's the first thing. You convert the division to a multiplication, and then you swap the numerator with the denominator, and you get that. All right, so you will notice that this step becomes very similar to this step. All right, so what we need to do here is there's two ways. All right, you could literally multiply the top numbers and then divide it by the numbers below. All right, or you can simplify this by saying, hang on, 2x minus 4, I can factorize this. Now we've done enough questions on factorization, so we should be familiar with this. So what we do when we factorize 2x minus 4, like I said before, you want to make the brackets. So between 2x and negative 4, the number or the letter that could be divisible between 2x and minus 4 is 2. And then you open the brackets, 2x divided by 2 is x, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. And that now becomes over 3 times 6 over x minus 2. Now you'll notice that that's the same and that's the same, so that cancels out. You can simplify 6 and 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. What we end up remaining, we got 2 times 2, which is 4. So in this question, what we've now done is we've factorized 2x minus 4 to make that, and then you'll notice that there's something common between the x minus 2 and the x minus 2. You cancel that out, and then you will see that 6 and 3 can also be divisible, so you will get 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 3 divided by 3 is 1, and therefore you're going to get 2 times 2, which is 4. All right, so two things you got to remember when you are dividing fractions. The first one is convert the division to a times. The second thing is to swap your numerator with your denominator, and then you simplify. If you remember, we did questions on factorization and expansion. You will notice that in algebraic questions such as these two questions, you will be required to know your factorization and expansion. I always tell my students that when you answer more complex questions, you will need 2-3 different topics applied together to solve this. So if you look at this question here, you needed to know fractions. You needed to know how to simply divide and multiply fractions. The basic understanding that you learned in year 7, for example. If you don't know that, then this becomes tricky. The second thing is you need to know the basic processes of algebra, which is expansion and factorization. To be more specific, in this one here, what we did was we factorized that. And then the other point you need to do is to simplify a fraction in its lowest term, like what we've done in here and what we've done in here. All right, thanks guys for listening. Bye now.